you ever noticed that Grandpa Pig always talks about working at sea as a sailor? What if I told you there's evidence in the episodes that he was actually a pirate, like Luffy from One Piece? Could it be that the pig family knows this and is keeping it a secret from Peppa and George? The most obvious clue appears in the episode The Biggest Muddy Puddle in the World. This episode would be sad if it were from another show, because we witness a true environmental disaster. The episode starts with heavy rain, which excites Peppa with the possibility of having muddy puddles to jump in the next day. However, the opposite happens. The rain is so heavy that overnight the entire world is flooded, and Peppa's house literally becomes a lost island in the middle of a sea. Peppa suggests that Daddy Pig swim to the stores to buy food, but let's be real. Just look at this guy, this pig, or whatever. We can see he's in no condition to swim even from his house to the edge of the screen without turning into pork stew. As much as that would be useful at the moment, especially since they needed food, it wouldn't be great for the continuity of the series. And that's when our favorite pirate comes to the rescue. Grandpa Pig has a boat. And in a situation like this, he's the perfect hero for the moment. He arrives to help his family stock up on food until the water dries up, if that's even gonna happen. And, of course, Peppa and George butt in and hop onto the boat to join the grocery adventure. Anyway, the entire episode focuses on this food buying journey, but the most important part for our theory happens later, in this final scene. If you look closely, you'll see the mast of the boat raised, with the parrot perched on top, and a strange flag. It looks like a pirate flag, doesn't it? But it's too far away to see clearly. However, in the episode we already discussed, Grandpa Pig's boat, you can see exactly what it is. In this scene at the beginning, George raises the flag, and it's literally a pirate flag, complete with a skull and everything. So, hide your treasures, because today is the day to uncover another amazing theory about the world of Peppa Pig, here on Zigzag. To begin with, let's talk about the most obvious clue of all. He's obsessed with the sea. He wears a sailor's hat everywhere he goes. And most importantly, he owns a boat. We can see this in two specific episodes. The first one is the episode where Peppa and George go for a boat ride with Grandpa Pig and accompany him to the harbor where his boat is kept. But wait, hold on. Where's the water? The tide was so low, it looked like someone came with a giant vacuum cleaner and sucked all the water out of the sea. Can you imagine the size of a vacuum cleaner to do that? It would have to be massive. Luckily, that wasn't the case, because soon the tide came back and the water freed the boat. He's able to sail with the kids out to the open sea, where they get stuck again and have to wait for the tide to rise to free the ship. They turn it into a big adventure, and Grandpa Pig reassures them. Soon enough, the tide rises again, and they safely set off. Only someone who knows the sea very well could stay that calm, right? The other episode is Grandpa Pig's boat, where he and Granny Pig take Peppa and George for a river cruise. In this episode, he acts as the captain and coordinates everyone like an experienced navigator. Why, though? During the trip, they run into Grandpa Dog, and then they start bickering because they're old friends. They even bet on a race. Could it be they were once part of the same pirate crew, like the Straw Hat crew? Or maybe they were friendly pirates brought together by situations that forced their bond. Jack Sparrow befriending Elizabeth and Will. It's something to think about. What do you think? But going back to the race, of course, Grandpa Pig wins because he's an experienced pirate, and Grandpa Dog is just a guy with a floating bathtub. Now, speaking of straw hats, in the episode Grandpa Pig's Plane, there's another reference that might lend a bit more support to this theory. This is the episode where Peppa meets Dolly, an old doll from Granny Pig's childhood. A very delicate doll because it's so old. Grandpa Pig has the brilliant idea of taking this fragile doll and putting it in his remote-controlled plane. But think about it. What could possibly go wrong, right? But that's not our focus today. Because if you pay close attention, the doll is wearing a hat that should look very familiar to anyone who's heard the word pirate in the last 30 years. It's a straw hat. Not only that, but it's a straw hat with a red band. And Dolly is dressed as a sailor. Also very familiar to anyone who knows this reference. I'm talking, of course, about One Piece. The straw hat is the signature symbol of Luffy's Straw Hat crew. and we can see that Grandpa Pig looks uncomfortable when he sees the doll dressed in a navy uniform. Look at his face when the doll appears! Since he was a pirate in the past, he must have had his share of problems with the Navy. Who knows? Maybe Luffy and the Straw Hat crew helped him out in some way? I don't know about you. This would have been the perfect episode to serve as a filler for the anime, don't you think? And it wouldn't be surprising if this really is a One Piece reference, because, as we've seen in another video, Peppa Pig has already made a reference to another famous anime, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. Now I have a challenge for you. If you can subscribe to the channel and click the bell in the next 3 seconds, type "I did it" in the comments. And you'll get a shout out and a heart on your comment. Another clue we can use to argue that Grandpa Pig was a pirate is the episode Mr. Bull Cleans the River. As usual, Grandpa Pig is taking the kids for another boat ride along the river, but along the way, they're stopped by the police and some workers managing the traffic because something's going on in the river. They take the boat and head upstream. But along the way, they run into Mr. Bull and his city council boat, which has a giant arm with a claw. It turns out the riverbed along the entire stretch is completely clogged with garbage and debris people have been throwing in while enjoying their trips. And that's just awful, right? Don't be those people, please, everyone. Mr. Bull starts showing off how his claw works. He lowers it into the water and starts pulling out chunks of trash one by one to load onto his boat and take back to the surface for proper disposal. But during this trash fishing session, something unexpected happens. Something that surely stirs up many golden memories in Grandpa Pig. They find a chest full of treasures. This reminds me of the treasure hunting mechanic in the game Zelda, the Wind Waker, where you have a setup just like Mr. Bull's Claw to fish up treasure from the seafloor. Of course, the police arrive to confiscate the treasure, arguing that a pirate might show up to claim it. Or maybe they're trying to protect the treasure for Mr. Fox, who's known as a thief and someone we've already talked about in another video. Grandpa Pig tries to play it smart and says there are no pirates in that part of the river anymore. What do you mean, not anymore? Does that mean there used to be? Suspicious. Then, out of nowhere comes Captain Redbeard, the same one from Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom, and he says the treasure is his, that he buried it in that river. The gullible police believe him and hand over the treasure, and he makes his getaway as fast as he can. And as usual, everyone ends the episode collapsing to the ground in hysterics. And if you enjoy this kind of detail and want to discuss it with other fans, join our Discord community for ages 13 and up only, okay? Speaking of treasures, the episode Grandpa and Grandma's Attic is also packed with theories, or should I say, treasures. In this episode, George and Peppa arrive at their grandparents' house in the middle of a full-blown cleaning spree. Their attic is completely stuffed with useless things they haven't used in years. And Grandma Pig decided it was finally time to put an end to that nonsense. She and Grandpa were in the process of sorting out what needed to be thrown away. And, of course, the same thing happens that always does in these situations. No one wants to throw anything away because they find a ton of stuff they didn't even remember existed, but suddenly decide they desperately need again for something. Grandpa doesn't want to get rid of his ships in bottles because he insists he needs every single one of them. How much do you bet one of those bottled ships is the Black Pearl itself, just like in Pirates of the Caribbean? On Stranger Tides? And Grandma Pig doesn't want to throw out her hats because, of course, she needs all of them. She even puts a beret on George, instantly turning him into Peaky Blinders himself, making him immediately cool and calculating. So, what do you think? We're clearly having fun with the possibilities. What are the chances that some or all of those boxes contain ancient treasures from Grandpa Pig's golden pirate days? I think that, just like the theory about Madame Gazelle being a vampire, this one has plenty of fuel to let your imagination run wild.